You close your eyes in a dark, quiet room. Your breathing slows down to a steady rhythm. Your awareness fades away entirely from the waking world. For 8 continuous hours you are completely defenseless. Why would your biology demand such a vulnerable state? For about 300,000 years, this was an invitation to be eaten. Your ancestors lived on a continent crawling with apex predators. They slept on the ground in the pitch-black savanna. The African landscape was not a peaceful place after the sun went down. The darkness hid monsters that possessed senses far superior to yours. Have you ever felt that primal fear of the dark? Saber-toothed cats stalked the tall, dry grass. Giant hyenas hunted in massive, coordinated packs. You would not survive a physical confrontation with any of these beasts. Your night vision is terrible compared to a roaming leopard. Your sense of smell cannot detect a predator approaching from downwind. How did you survive the night when everything wanted to consume you? The answer begins high above the dangerous ground. Your distant primate relatives did not sleep on the earth. They slept safely in the high canopy of the trees. Chimpanzees and orangutans build elaborate nests out of branches. They weave thick leaves together to create a stable platform. Are you aware that this kept them safe from most ground predators? They remain high up where heavy carnivores cannot easily climb. But your ancient ancestors eventually left the trees behind. They evolved to walk upright on the vast open savanna. This physical transition meant they had to sleep on the ground. Why would a vulnerable primate choose the highly dangerous earth? Evolutionary anthropologist David Sampson studied this exact biological problem. He looked closely at the physical differences between apes and humans. The answer lies directly in the fundamental quality of your rest. Tree branches are inherently unstable and highly unpredictable environments. You cannot enter deep restorative sleep safely in a swaying tree. Do you know what happens to your body during deep sleep? A specific biological mechanism occurs during rapid eye movement sleep. Your brain completely paralyzes your voluntary muscles. Scientists and anthropologists call this mechanism muscle atonia. If you enter deep rapid eye movement sleep in a tree, you will fall. Your ancestors needed deeper sleep to fuel their rapidly growing brains. Have you ever considered that intelligence requires a massive energy trade? They had to trade physical safety for sheer cognitive power. They came down to the ground simply to dream. But the ground was full of sharp teeth and hungry eyes. The savanna at night was a brutal theater of survival. How do you sleep deeply when you are surrounded by hungry predators? The first line of defense was not a sharpened wooden spear. It was a violent and brilliant chemical reaction. You tamed the natural environment to push back the encroaching dark. The hard evidence for this is burned directly into the ancient earth. Do you know where the oldest evidence of this defense lies? Deep in South Africa lies a remarkable place called Swartkrans Cave. Archaeologists digging there found heavily burned animal bones. These bones date back well over 1 million years. They prove your ancestors controlled fire long before they were fully modern humans. They harnessed the power of flames to change their entire existence. Can you imagine the profound relief of that first warm light? Fire changed the fundamental rules of the night entirely. You must realize how terrifying fire is to a wild animal. Predators rely purely on ancient survival instincts. Instinct tells them to run far away from heat and thick smoke. A roaring fire creates a glowing circle of absolute safety. Why does a campfire still make you feel so incredibly peaceful today? It acts as an artificial sun in the endless darkness. But fire is not enough on its own to keep you alive. A fire can quickly burn down to cold, glowing embers. A starving predator might risk the smoke if the flames suddenly die down. The wind can shift and extinguish your only source of protection. How do you ensure the fire keeps burning while you are unconscious? You need a second layer of defense to survive the night. You need constant and unbroken vigilance. But you cannot stay awake forever without damaging your brain. You do not sleep alone in this harsh environment. You sleep in a highly coordinated and tightly knit group. Have you ever wondered why you prefer sleeping near your loved ones? Anthropologists call this survival concept the sentinel hypothesis. It suggests that human survival relied heavily on staggered sleeping schedules. David Sampson tested this fascinating hypothesis directly in the modern field. He lived closely with the Hadza people for an extended period. The Hadza are a traditional hunter-gatherer society living in Tanzania. Do you know how closely their lives mirror your ancient ancestors? They live very much like early humans did on the open savanna. Sampson gave them modern wearable devices to track their sleep cycles. He wanted to see exactly when they slept and when they woke. The results completely shattered modern assumptions about a healthy bedtime. Have you ever been told you have a terrible sleep schedule? The Hadza did not go to sleep at the exact same time. They did not wake up at the exact same time either. Some individuals naturally stayed up very late into the deep night. Some individuals naturally woke up extremely early in the dark morning. Out of the entire tribal group, someone was almost always awake. Why is this variation in sleep timing absolutely critical for survival? Over hundreds of hours of observation, the entire tribe was rarely asleep together. They were all completely unconscious at the same time for only 18 minutes. In a typical group of 30 people, someone is always fully conscious. They act as natural sentinels for the rest of the vulnerable group. They tend the vital fire and listen carefully to the dark. Do you realize your sleep habits are an evolutionary survival strategy? This is exactly why you have morning people and night owls today. Your internal biological clock is varied on purpose by your genetics. Your late-night insomnia was actually a highly valued survival trait. It ensured someone was always watching the perimeter for danger. You were the guardian of the tribe when everyone else was dreaming. How does it feel knowing your restlessness kept humanity alive? This varied sleep pattern is not unique just to the Hadza people. Anthropologist Richard Lee observed the exact same behavior in 1963. He lived alongside the Jew/Hoansi people of the vast Kalahari Desert. He noted their camps were highly active at all hours of the night. People constantly woke up to talk and stoke the dying fires. Does this sound like the silent, unbroken sleep you are told to achieve? They slept in shifting, overlapping phases without ever consciously planning it. It was a perfectly natural and beautifully orchestrated biological dance. The tribe acted as a single massive organism with many eyes. While one part of the collective brain slept, the other part watched. You are only alive today because someone else stayed awake in the dark. How often do you think about the ancient people who guarded your ancestors? The human brain evolved over millennia to sleep in fragments. You were never biologically meant to sleep for 8 hours straight. The historical record proves this fact over and over again. Before the heavy machinery of the industrial age, people slept quite differently. Historian Roger Ekirch uncovered massive evidence of this forgotten habit. Have you ever heard of the concept of first and second sleep? People universally slept in two distinct and separate phases. They experienced a first sleep that began shortly after dusk. They then woke up completely in the middle of the quiet night. They stayed awake for an hour or two in the gentle darkness. They talked softly to their families and neighbors. What do you think they did during this midnight waking hour? They added fresh wood to the glowing indoor hearth. They checked the perimeter of their homes for potential danger. They reflected on their dreams and prayed in the quiet stillness. Then they naturally went back to bed for their second sleep. This biphasic pattern was the absolute standard for human rest. Why do you fight this ancient rhythm so fiercely today? Let us recreate a single night 200,000 years ago. The harsh sun dips below the dusty and endless horizon. The temperature drops sharply as the heavy dark sets in. You sit around a crackling hearth with your entire extended tribe. The thick, comforting smell of wood smoke clings to your bare skin. Can you hear the distant sounds of the wild savanna? A large, unseen predator roars loudly in the far distance. Are you terribly afraid of the echoing, terrifying sound? You are not afraid because the massive fire is burning bright. You lay down on a woven bed of dry, crushed grasses. You fall asleep quickly because you are physically and mentally exhausted. How long do you think you will stay asleep in this environment? 3 hours later, you slowly open your eyes to the stars. You sit up and look around the quiet and peaceful camp. An older member of the tribe is awake across the fire. They nod silently to you and throw a thick branch on the glowing coals. You listen intently to the dry wind moving through the brush. Does this midnight awakening feel like a disorder to you? You hear the deep rhythmic breathing of your sleeping family. You feel completely safe in the radiating warmth of the flames. You know that you are protected by the watchful eyes of your kin. You lay back down and return easily to the dark. You will wake up 2 more times before the dawn finally breaks. Why does modern society tell you this natural pattern is wrong? This fragmented sleep feels perfectly natural to your physical body. It is exactly how your brain evolved to rest and recover. Your ancestors thrived because they embraced this collective vulnerability. They understood that safety came from community rather than isolation. What changed so drastically to make you sleep differently today? The modern world actively tells you this ancient behavior is a disorder. You are constantly told you must sleep exactly 8 hours continuously. You are told that waking up in the night means you are unhealthy. But the solid, unbroken 8-hour block is a completely modern invention. The agricultural revolution forced you to work outside heavily all day. Do you realize how much the Industrial Revolution altered your biology? The Industrial Revolution forced you to strictly fit a rigid factory schedule. You moved indoors and locked your heavy wooden doors tightly. You extinguished the open fire and started sleeping entirely alone. You traded the vigilant living safety of the tribe for the artificial safety of a wall. But your ancient biology did not change at all. Why does your brain still panic when you wake up alone? Your brain still desperately expects the glowing fire. Your brain still expects the natural sentinels to be watching over you. This is exactly why you wake up suddenly at 3 in the morning. Your ancient body is simply naturally checking the perimeter. It is actively looking for the warm, familiar glow of the hearth. Are you starting to understand your own restless nights? It is listening closely for the slow, steady breathing of your tribe. You feel deeply anxious in the dark because you are completely isolated. You are sleeping in a way you were never actually designed for. The modern bedroom is a completely alien environment to your nervous system. You are a tribal creature trapped in an isolated box. How can you find peace when your instincts demand a guardian? Your ancestors mastered the terrifying night by leaning heavily on each other. They survived the apex predators because they shared the heavy burden of awareness. They built a massive wall of fire and a wall of open eyes. They did not hide fearfully from the dark. They conquered the terrible darkness entirely through deep community. Have you forgotten how to share the burden of survival? You lie awake in a silent, enclosed room entirely isolated from the world. For 8 straight hours you force yourself into total defenselessness. The dark, quiet room where you close your eyes is the strangest thing you can do.